Hi, my name is Michael Beelan. I'm a systems engineer with Cisco Systems. Recently acquired from Lancope. Was acquired in December of last year. Lancope makes the StealthWatch product, and this is a NetFlow-based security monitoring solution designed to provide broad spectrum visibility behind the perimeter. And it leverages NetFlow, which is embedded into most of the routing and switching devices that Cisco produces. So what we're going to look at here today is StealthWatch system. I've got the StealthWatch management console up on the screen. Just to give you a little idea about how the system works, we have a three-layer architecture. The first talks about how we acquire the flow data. You see these right here. Exporters represent the routers, switches, and firewalls that can have NetFlow enabled. NetFlow is a metadata solution that records summary information on every conversation that crosses the wire and then forwards that information up to our collector. We can also use a flow sensor. A flow sensor is a virtual or physical appliance that plugs into a span port or a tap, essentially eats the packets and generates NetFlow for us. Also, it adds additional layer 7 contextual information to do things like passive operating system fingerprinting and application verification. Regardless of how we get the flow, the data is pushed up to the collector. The collector is then going to profile every IP address that speaks on the network and give you things like the operating system that runs on the host, the applications, ports, and services that those hosts are using as a client, as a server, who those hosts are talking to, and if any of that behavior violates policy. Once that's done, the information is going to be pushed up to the management console, which renders the interface that we see here. The visibility that we provide from NetFlow is very lightweight and broad spectrum, as I mentioned before, behind the perimeter where most organizations and agencies are often blind. So what I'm going to walk through now is a quick demonstration of how we can quickly drill down into suspicious information on the network and use it to monitor against insider threat type situations. So what I'm looking at here is a group, a dashboard for a location in the network, which happens to be Atlanta here. In the top section, I'm looking at inbound traffic to Atlanta in the positive range and outbound traffic in the negative range. I've got internal traffic by application type, and I've got a variety of different top talkers. All this data is live. If I want to drill in, for instance, to this spike right here and find out who's responsible for this traffic, I put my cursor over this. I see this is an outbound file transfer. I'm curious about this, so I can right-click and drill down, ask for top conversations. The top conversations I have right here. So I can quickly see that 100% of the traffic represented in that spike is from a terminal server talking UDP 53 DNS to a machine off network. So I'm curious about that. I'm going to double-click on the IP address. And here we have a host snapshot. The host snapshot is the result of the profiling that I mentioned earlier, which is essentially everything the network knows about this host. When you're curious about a host, you're investigating that on the network, the first two things you want to know is the host still on the network, and if so, what's it doing? So we start off on this top active flows tab, which shows the currently active conversations the host is engaged in. We see that host's role, client or server. We see the host that they are talking to, where that host is located, and something about the traffic. Now I can scroll to the left, look for any security violations this host has created, and we see one. In this case, it's called fake application detected. Now, what does that mean? A fake application means that the metadata that we're getting from NetFlow, in this case the port in use, which is DNS 53, does not actually match up with what our sensor's telling us is in use on that conversation. So here, I want more information about this, so I can request to see the actual flow that resulted in this security event. And I have that here. So clicking on that, I see the conversation that resulted in that alarm. Furthermore, I see additional contextual information about the conversation as well. I see the credentials of the user that's logged on. We know the terminal server. We know it's located in Atlanta. Here I see over 500 megs of data over UDP 53, supposed to be DNS, but the sensor tells me that this is not in fact DNS, as we would imagine. It's a peer-to-peer file transfer to a host offsite in Puerto Rico. Here I've got the user and the host dead to rights, And at this point, I'm going to escalate up my chain of command and have the host removed from the network. This is something that we can do in an automated fashion with integration with Cisco ICE. I just can't show you that right now. So one last thing, just to kind of round out the investigation. We know the user is involved. We know the user that is involved in this conversation. Now, it could be actively that user doing something bad, or it could be credentials that were compromised. So what I want to do is come up here, and I'm going to do a user snapshot, which I have here. We know Lucy was the name that was involved. So I'm going to click here. And in this case, we see that Lucy has been logged on to a number of different machines. Right, we have the terminal server that we were logged into, number 23, and we have currently no longer logged in, but a machine that we see is listed as a compliance host. So this is further evidence that those credentials could be compromised. Again, something else to escalate up and perhaps have that machine removed from the network and have forensic mitigation performed on that. So essentially what we've talked about is the ability to use a NetFlow-based system to leverage the infrastructure that customers have already purchased to provide broad spectrum visibility behind the perimeter for very low touch. And then we have the ability to navigate down through that data to answer questions quickly and provide analysts better information. So thank you. For more information, you can go to Cisco.com or Lancope.com, and look forward to talking to you later.